nothing there to shoot the guy. For what, trespassing? That's what it was. He was trespassing in federal grounds. You should have got this all on the same.
Oh, I got it, Dan. I mean, you want to talk about Cartagena?
Yeah, oh, man. Light that thing up.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, brother.
We've met once or twice before.
Yeah, I forget where, man.
Tom, Will Cain. Nice to meet you. I might have met you once before on a CNN set, maybe.
We did.
Yeah.
First
John, nice to meet you first time. Joe, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, I hope you didn't burn up all your stories in the locker room.
No, I got
this is what I want.
No, this is the city of a million stories. What are you kidding?
This is like the thin blue line right here, right?
Well,
I didn't know you guys knew each other.
We did. We've seen each other on green rooms,
well,
but
I've been with you on a panel
a couple times.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not from service.
No.
It's from, it's from doing
we
TV.
didn't know.
Tom's in the middle.
Okay, I'm on the end here. Okay, great.
It's a cozy studio.
Very cozy.
They got to put a mic on you, Joe.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what that says. You know, at least in the NYPD for some years together, and you get to know each other in television green room post career.
Well,
That's sad, isn't it?
what was their high point? 38,000 cops.
40.
40. So
We were over 40.
it's the
Just
world's like
slightly.
7th largest army, from what I've heard. So
Yeah, that's
It
one of
was.
the things I constantly quote out there. The NYPD is I actually use the 5th or 6th largest army in the world.
yeah.
You know, so it's a big organization.
I got so many things I want to talk about, but right now I have to ask, just listening to that reference, do you think of yourselves as an army?
No.
Well, you used the term, both of you, twice.
Well, we use it in the proper context, right?
If
If you take it out of context, it could almost be seen as a pejorative in a way, right? You know, an army, really not really an army, all right. But when you consider the uniformed force, we are the largest uniformed force almost in the world.
Let's come back to that a little later, because I want to. This is an interesting concept. The idea of police and the military, the relationship, the differences. I want to come back to that, but I want to start with stories. And first, I got to start with who you guys are. So, as I said, Dan, we've met each other several times. Your short bio. You're from Queens.
Queens.
4 or 5 years in NYPD.
Yeah.
Several years at the Secret Service after that.
That's right.
And then since then, aspiring politician.
Yeah, recovering at this point, politician. I'm in the 12-step program. I'm at step 7.5.
Tom, unfortunately, you're the outlier here. You're former NYPD detective, and now you're a private investigator.
Correct.
Tom
I'm the
Ruskin.
president of a private investigative firm.
So now, Joe Concannon, your bio, at least on my one-liner here, is not so different than Dan's. NYPD, retired NYPD captain.
Certainly.
And also aspiring politician.
That and at the same time, and I'd go with Dan's framework on that, you know, recovering. But also, I run my own internet security company on the side. So, we're in a lot of different holes here.
How about this, Dan? Tell me your worst day.
So it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I was doing a 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. foot post, and I was sitting on a corner of Pennsylvania Avenue, and I see this kid. He's maybe 10 to 12, and I wasn't a parent back then, so I guess it didn't occur to me how unusual this was. That it was 1 in the morning. He was out in the street, but I'd seen the kid before. So he comes up to me, we strike up a conversation, and I said to him, why are you out this late? And, he just kind of gaffed off the question. I said to him next, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it was really incredible, the answer he gave me, because you could see that didn't mean anything to him. When you grow up was a time event. It wasn't a hypothetical, promising future. It was just, when I grow up, I want to be alive. It was kind of, I could see it was going through his head. But he said to me, I'd like to be AZ. And I said, AZ? And at the time, Jay-Z was an up-and-coming Brooklyn rapper. He wasn't the superstar he is now. So I said, oh, Jay-Z. He said, no, that's not what I said. He said, I said AZ. And I said, and then it all clicked. AZ was this local drug dealer who was a wannabe rapper as well. And I thought to myself, it was a tough night. I went home, and I only lived a couple miles from the precinct, actually, but in a different part of town. And I remember going home and telling, my wife at the time that, I can't just kind of sit back and just watch all this.
I'm kind of surprised that that's your worst day. It's not that isn't eye-opening. But I can only imagine, all of you guys, viscerally, you saw things that I'm sure I have never seen in my life. I know this sounds trite, but your first dead body, was that seen as an NYPD police officer?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. My first night out on patrol.
Your first night?
First night, back in December of 1981. I'm out there with Billy, and I'll leave his last name out. He had a 1 year prior experience, and he was a senior guy in the car, and he was from the Housing Bureau. And Billy and I were allowed to go out on the street. We were part of a neighborhood stabilization unit, a bunch of trainees, rookie cops, and we wandered into our zone, which was the 110 precinct, and over the radio comes a radio call, 1010 man with a gun at the back of Elmhurst General Hospital. I'll never forget this for my entire life. Every time I talk about it, the hairs go up on the back of my neck. And Billy and I went over to the scene, and sure enough, we confirmed that there was a small parking lot behind Elmhurst General Hospital, sort of like a triangle, and a large concrete wall where everybody headed in with their cars, parked head in. And there was a guy back there with a small caliber gun with a lady in a headlock, and the gun pointed at her head. And Billy and I got out of the car, and we're like, okay, what do we do? You know, we're young cops. You know, this is our first, real experience. She says, come on, draw your gun, protect yourself. Well, we get out behind our car doors, our guns are drawn, and right as we're trying to figure out what's going on, the 110 conditions car pulled up. They see the guy, and all we hear is, pop, pop. The guy drops to the ground. The woman's standing there in disbelief. I'm there like, holy mackerel, what just happened?
Your first night on the job.
My first night on the job. And that's the God honest truth. And I've taken that with me forever.
Rookie year, eye-opening, same way?
Different. I was working Times Square when Times Square was not the way we see it now. Disney wasn't there. All the lights weren't there. The stores, it was a lot of massage parlors. It was a lot of people with guns. The Westies gang on the west side were very active. Mickey Featherstone was shooting people in lobbies of buildings and trying to kill the president of the electrical union. It was a different time, but the experience that comes to me is responding to a 1054, which is an aided case, in a restaurant off of 6th Avenue in the 50s, and a young girl in this restaurant was in cardiac arrest, 14 years old, and tried to revive her. And we were taught basic. I had a little bit more advanced training. She was having trouble breathing. She was in cardiac arrest when we got her heart started. She came to, she looked me in the eye. I told her she was going to be all right. And then she went back into cardiac arrest. We rushed her to St. Clair's Hospital, and she died. And I got a very nice note from the family thereafter, because they were standing around. She went into anaphylactic shock, and that's what killed her. But it's been an experience like Dan's experience, that you're dealing with an individual. You take the job, and I don't care what anyone says, you take the job really to save people. And that night I failed.
Dan, one thing that's interesting, and I'm not taking anything away from the story you just gave us. Everybody's story impacts them differently, and yours actually stands out to me, because if I'm guessing what you guys would have told me, it would have been situations where you saw someone killed, or you saw someone die, or you contributed to that situation. You had to kill somebody. Yours is almost bigger, because it's not about one individual, and it's not about a loss of a life. It's like, it's loss of hope. And I don't mean to tell you what your story should mean, but that's what I heard. Is that why that one stuck out to you? It's loss of hope, and it's about more than just that one kid.
Well, for me, having grown up in, Leave It to Beaver suburbia before my parents got divorced, and then it all collapsing. We moved above a bar at Myrtle Avenue and 64th Place, ironically right across the street from the funeral for one of the cops who was assassinated. I grew up right above that bar. Everything collapsed. I'd never been confronted with rats in an apartment. I didn't even know what they were. I mean, you heard about them on TV. You didn't realize you could really get sick if one of those bites you. And looking at the refrigerator and seeing rotten bologna and then cooking it so it wouldn't get you sick. It was really an eye-opener. So I had kind of had this diametrically opposed, view of the world that, I was always asking the bigger questions, I guess, because I had seen both sides. And when I went into the 7-5 precinct just over the hill, a place that I'd never been, but had only lived maybe 2 miles from, I really could not believe what was going on over there. You know, I had grown up, let's say, mildly liberal, to the liberal side of a political spectrum, as most of us would see it. And had always been under this belief, growing up with FDR Democrats, that the that the FDR Democrats, that the government was some benevolent force. You can't sit in those streets at night, 5 days a week, for 2 years of your life on a foot post and not be changed. You can't.
When you have something small and detailed to do, you squint, hold it close, and still can't see. And with a magnifying glass, you're not hands-free. What you need is Big Vision, the magnifying eyewear that makes everything 200% bigger and clearer. Look, you could hold a magnifying glass with one hand and try to work with the other. Oh, brother. But Big Vision brings the power of a magnifying glass to the place you really need it, your eyes, so you can work with both hands. Big Visions are not reading glasses, but hands-free magnifying eyewear that helps you enlarge even the tiniest details. Now work on crafts up close. Inspect stamps and coins like a pro. Even the smallest print is 200% bigger with Big Vision. Big Vision is truly a lifesaver for removing a splinter or clipping your child's fingernails. Let Big Vision help you repair intricate jewelry, solder a circuit board, or discover the secrets of an old photo. Big Vision can be comfortably worn over prescription glasses or contacts. You see all the details without painful straining and squinting, and there's no prescription needed.
It's very clear. It's amazing.
They do not make glasses that do this. It's like high definition.
Oh, wow, it went right in there. That is amazing. I mean, that was fast, too.
It's perfect for magnifying small print on medications, enlarging pictures and text on your smartphone, or remote controls. Similar eyewear sells for as much as $150, but you can order now to get Big Vision with heating and storage case for just $19.99. But hang on, to shine some light on your favorite projects, we'll include this clip-on LED light free. And to make this offer really clear, we're going to double the offer free. Just pay processing and handling. That's 2 pairs of Big Visions with carry cases and 2 clip-on lights, all for just $19.99. Call or go online now.
To order, call 1-800-659-0605 or log on to buybigvision.com. That's 1-800-659-0605 or log on to buybigvision.com. Don't delay, order now.
This is The Blaze.
Our mission is to bring something entirely different to the table.
Do you feel like government has written enough regulations yet? Well, apparently they didn't.
Why not pick someone who's really conservative to promote the conservative agenda? The Blaze is news, information, and entertainment for the entire family, focused on one thing, giving you the truth.
Choose an optimistic future. Choose freedom.
The Blaze. Truth lives here.
Tom, you mentioned you each have your gun stories. Look, I can only imagine that these moments stick out. They're like spikes on your emotional chart here.
Sure.
Whenever somebody dies, whenever you fire your gun. So tell me this. I don't even know how to ask this question, to be honest. The first time you fired your gun? The only time you fired your gun? The first time you got shot at? The only time you... I mean, am I asking about singular incidences
Well, I don't know.
or daily?
I have never fired my gun in the line of duty.
Okay.
Except on the range. I've been in shooting situations. I've been there when someone got shot or when my partner shot, but I didn't shoot. So I don't know. Were you in a shooting situation?
Shooting situations, but not actually being fired at or giving fire away. A number of gun collar arrests where you're actually wrestling for control of a gun. Those I've been involved in a number of those situations, but no, not any live fire.
Dan?
Mine was actually accidental. Not on my end. I never fired a weapon in the line of duty, thank God. But I was on a foot post one night and heard a very distinct sound. It was a kid in the street, fired his weapon, probably missed us by, I want to be melodramatic, probably 20 feet or so, but you clearly heard it. He didn't see us. We were in the dark and got into a foot pursuit with him, and he was slick. We turned the corner, and I was about 10 feet behind him, so right as he turned the corner, he jumped underneath the truck. So when I turned the corner, I passed him. He got up, took his jacket off, walked casually down the corner.
How do you know all this, though? How do you know he took his jacket off and got away?
We could only assume because they found a jacket near the truck, but the task force guys that responded to the 1013, which is a radio run for help, we need help here, They knew it was him, and they did the old cop trick. They put the hand up to his chest, and his heart rate was
just real quick, Tom, is that rare? I have three former cops sitting here.
I think the misnomer here is that the majority of cops during their career on the NYPD and other departments never fire their gun in the line of duty. The vast majority.
You're telling me that's the way it is?
That's the norm.
That's the law.
Yeah, so you're right. My misperception is surely I have three cops here. Somebody had a shooting incident.
No, it's very rare. Very, very rare throughout the department. This department is probably the most restrained department, you know, if not across the nation, across the world.
We talk about how eye-opening is your first year. What's it like your 5th year? Your 7th year? I don't know how long each of you were in, but is there a moment, what I'm getting at, where the destitution or the death or whatever it is you see over some extended period of time, you get desensitized to it? Does it ever get to a moment where you've seen it all?
I don't think it ever comes to that point where you've ever seen it all. It's almost like every single incident is almost a new incident out there. I suppose mentally you get a little bit more adjusted to it. You know, I can vividly recall the time somebody was a hit and run accident, and I was actually in my radio car on Broadway, saw the body go up in the air and slam down to the ground, and I was like, oh my God, you know, this is the first time I'd ever seen that kind of an impact. All of us, I'm sure, have been at plenty of deceased bodies, you know, from the elderly and things like that, and processing them as aided cases. You know, I don't know about these guys. I've been there, the birth of a new baby and things. So you do see life at its beginning, you see life at its end, and you see all the little situations that evolve around it. And, you know, some of us handle that very well. Some of us don't handle it well. You know, there's a high divorce rate in the police department. You know, sometimes alcohol plays into it. You know, there's a lot of problems. It's, you know, it's not an easy job. It's not a job at the end of the day where you have thousands of people coming in to the police station saying, hey, great job today. You answered, you know, 40 radio runs and, you know, wonderful. You know, there's nobody saying that, you know.
You desensitized to it?
No. I don't think you ever lose the sensitivity of being a human being. What people forget is that a cop at the beginning of the day is a normal person. He's got to mow the lawn, he's got to watch the kids, he's got to worry about his finances, he's worried about making ends meet, he's talking about doing the overtime for the few extra dollars. And then he or she goes into work, puts on a uniform, or takes a responsibility of, now you're on duty, and now you're carrying out this job or this responsibility. And all of a sudden, you're seen by the public vastly different. You're still that same human being.
Tell me this. Why'd you become a cop? Now, listen, there's an easy answer to that. And I'm not saying it's untrue. I'm sure it is true to some extent. But you're all going to tell me for service.
No.
Good.
No.
Because I want to know, look, I can guess at some reasons. The movies provide me some reasons. I'm just curious how much these are real. You have some sense of authority. You like action.
No, well,
any of those play into it?
You're missing it. Where are we before we're cops? Where are we? We're kids. We're kids from the community, right? We graduated high school. Some of us are either have gone through college or maybe are in the midst of going through college. And we're like any other young guy or girl out there today that's looking for a job. And a job in civil service with the police department provided stability. It provided a good paycheck. Camaraderie and a great fraternity with
But you didn't pick the fire department, Joe.
Sure. Well, I had the opportunity, though, because I came from a community filled with firemen, with police officers, sanitation men, and what did our parents tell us? I came from a family. You know, my father was a police officer. Take the civil service test. If you don't want the police department, take the fire department. Take all these tests because it was reliable employment. All right. And we were young guys. We said, hey, look, you know, I got to go to work. Where am I going to get a job? And that was one of the emphasis out there.
I believe you.
Yeah. Well,
but there's a lot of jobs. I wanted to know why you picked this job. And I wonder, does the excitement have something to do with it?
Definitely for me. I definitely liked the know. I definitely liked being there in the action. I definitely wanted to help people. and it was something that was foreign to me in the area in which I grew up.
When you say action, I'm curious, Tom, like what did you, at that time, what did you have in your mind?
Oh, responding.
Foot chases?
Responding to stuff, yeah, locking up bad guys, you know, doing police work and helping people. I mean, it's all part of the same excitement. It didn't matter to me if I was responding to an aided case to help someone who had potentially gotten hit by the car or fallen, or a grandmother who had slipped and maybe broken her hip, or responding to the robbery in progress, or the man holding a gun, the 10-10. When I turned out in Times Square at that time, we could be holding 10 gun runs. That's 10 people or 10 calls with possible guns involved. So it was that excitement as well.
Dan, better than a desk job?
Depends what kind of desk job. I mean, if you're going to pay me $2 million to sit behind a desk, we could talk. But you know, when I was a kid, yeah, of course the excitement always has something to do. We've all seen movies, you know, cowboys and Indians, right? Everybody wanted to be the cowboy. But I was in a house that had a lot of domestic violence. It was very serious. The man was still was a Golden Gloves boxer and still acts like it. And my mother was small, and I had it wasn't my father, it was my stepfather. And this man was, you hear this term, oh, this guy's not scared of anything. This guy really wasn't. I mean, he was about 6'4", 6'5", about 320 pounds, you know, hands about this big, and was really frightened of no one or no man. I've never met anyone like him since, except the cops. And one night I was sleeping, typical incident, and I remember these two cops showed up, neighborhood cops, kind of community policing's gone by the wayside. Back then there were neighborhood cops. And one of them was about a 5'2" female. They had the powder blue uniforms back then, which were interesting. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. You know, like my life went from pure hell, this guy who was rattling my windows, trying to break into my house, and now all of a sudden everything was peaceful because, you know, it wasn't a man-woman thing. She was short. This guy, terrified, never wanted to be arrested. And it changed everything. I wanted to be a doctor before that. And that was kind of definitely the focal point of where everything kind of just focused for me.
Gateway Hills is good for business. Just 30 miles from Boston, Gateway Hills in Nashua, New Hampshire is a modern 400-acre live, work, play, and shop community. But what makes Gateway Hills good for business? No income tax, no sales tax, no capital gains tax, no inventory tax, and no machinery tax. New Hampshire is a state that values liberty, business, and entrepreneurship, and Gateway Hills offers a lifestyle that you and your employees will love. Gateway Hills, it's good for business.
Your ancestors preserved food and prepared for rainy days. Shouldn't you? An economic collapse or natural disaster could be right around the corner. Prepare now with an amazing home freeze dryer from Harvest Right, the world's first freeze dryer for families. At HarvestRight.com, you can find out how to build a supply of food that will last a lifetime. Go to HarvestRight.com to see how this amazing home appliance works. Freeze dry the food you and your family love, only at HarvestRight.com.
Nutrition and healthy eating has become very personal to me over the last year. I have learned that healthy eating and keeping my weight in check has a direct tie to my overall health and how I feel. Diets do not work. In fact, my wife has banned the word diet in our house. Dad's on his diet. No, he's not. This is a way our family now eats. And it's not just me. And it's not just because of weight. It actually changes everything in your life. Everything we teach our kids is exactly the wrong way to eat, and it has led to an obesity epidemic in America. Simple to Lose is out to not help people lose weight, but get America healthy, and that's why I endorse them. Simple to Lose. Thousands of Blaze viewers have lost weight with Simple to Lose, and when you contact Simple to Lose, you'll have a personal health coach that will help you understand how eating 6 meals a day will help you lose weight safely. Health coaches, Simple to Lose, people just like you. Go there now. There was a time when 3 generations all lived in the same house. That really doesn't happen much anymore, but there is a place where grandparents, parents, and children can still all get together, learn, laugh, and share. It's right here on The Blaze. News, conversations, entertainment, all focused on giving your family the truth, because isn't that what they deserve? We're The Blaze. We're just getting started, but we invite you to join us on our journey, The Blaze.
From New York, the truth, the headlines, right now.
I'm Amy Holmes at The Blaze. Clothing retailer Urban Outfitters under fire for selling merchandise critics say is eerily reminiscent to uniforms some concentration camps prisoners were forced to wear during the Holocaust. The company is selling a striped tapestry featuring a pink triangle resembling uniforms the Nazis forced gay men to wear. Jewish rights groups, the Anti-Defamation League, sending a letter to Urban Outfitters CEO saying that the product is, quote, deeply offensive and should not be mainstreamed into popular culture. And bye-bye school bake sales. The Associated Press reporting new Department of Agriculture rules are banning schools from selling sugary snacks to raise extra money for student activities. Many schools replacing bake sales with fun runs, auctions, and fundraisers featuring healthier treats.
I'm just going to ask the three of you, was excessive force used in the Eric Garner case? So just start with Dan and go down the couch.
Well, I'm going to give an uncomfortable answer, I think, for you guys. Yes, I think so. I don't think, now that's not saying, I'm not talking about intent. That's a totally different thing, what the officer intended to do. But I think it's very difficult to make the argument right now that there wasn't a different way to do things. It's easy, and keep in mind, having been it's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback here on the sofa. I wasn't there. But I don't dispute the officer's intent was to do the right thing, but I think it's a tough argument to make that that was not excessive considering the crime.
Tom?
You're there. You've seen a crime being committed. You're an officer. You're held to the responsibility of making that arrest, and that's what that officer and officers did under the supervision of a sergeant. Monday morning quarterback is very, very easy to do in the privacy of your home or watching a video, but it's not so easy if you're in those shoes at that moment and you have a big guy, a very big guy, backing away from you and potentially launching into a foot chase. And what happens if I said that in that foot chase, a police officer chasing him across the street would have been hit by a car and killed? Unfortunately, Eric Garner died. And maybe we could have tased him, and maybe we could do other things, but that's all it is maybes. I've been there. I've been in those situations, and you'll take him down and you'll arrest him.
I understand your perspective, but your rationale would suggest there's never a capability of looking back on an incident and criticizing it or judging it. Only the moment can be judged. So you can't imagine any situation where you could watch a videotape after the fact and go, that wasn't correct?
Yes, but that wasn't the case. And yes, we can all sit here and we can watch videotapes and critique police procedures. I've been in that position. I've done that. And police departments like New York City will continue to do that. In this case, that was the scenario at the time. And in my opinion, they did what they had to do. And Eric Garner died not from a chokehold and not from a takedown procedure. It had to do with his weight, his health, and that's what killed him. There was no strangulation of the esophagus in the medical examiner's report.
Joe?
Yeah, thanks. Well, you've seen a great deal of opinion here. We're basing that on what? 8 seconds of video. That's what we're basing this on. None of us have been privy to the grand jury proceedings. I can tell you that every sergeant on patrol has a host of non-lethal devices that they could have employed. Why they didn't, I don't know why they didn't. But that probably would have been my critique if I was watching this as an after action. There was a whole lead up to this that is being ignored by everyone. This individual is a perpetual violator of the same law, the same rules over and over and over again, to the point where he gets arrested, I think, 31 times. So a lot of this is glazed over, all right? And the other thing which I think is really overlooked is the respect for the police officers who are on the scene, not just one or two, but, you know, it's almost like an armada of these guys that are on the scene there, all right? And this guy says to himself, I am not respecting authority. I am not going to submit to authority. When a uniformed New York City police officer or any police officer from around the country comes up to you and says, you are under arrest, you don't have an option, you don't have a vote. Put your hands behind your back, let the officer cuff you, get into the patrol car, go get processed, and then if you think you have a case, take it up with your lawyer.
Has anyone ever negotiated themselves out of you arresting them when you were a cop? Wow, the silence suggests there's a yes.
There's been times that someone has convinced me that what I'm questioning about, not talking me out of arrest, but explaining the situation we're in, where I was convinced that they shouldn't be arrested.
Well, so to your point, Joe, there are situations where it sounds like where you are about to be arrested and you talk to the officer and say you were misperceiving this. I don't know what was going on there at Garner. But you put it in terms of you put it in terms of a vote.
You're taking it out of context.
Right. How's that?
All right, because Eric Gardner is not, you know, that 1010 radio run or this run or that run. Eric Gardner is a guy who is a fixture in front of that store. All right, Eric Gardner is a guy that the shop owners on that block know personally. He's intimidated these shop owners. These shop owners have requested the local precinct to take action. They didn't get enough action. Eric Gardner only arrested, now hang on now, 30 times. They go to the borough commander. The borough commander calls the precinct commander and says, precinct commander, you want to be a precinct commander? Take care of that situation. So this evolves over time.
That's a fair point.
This isn't just one radio run.
That's a fair point. I'm not questioning the officers in this instance involved with Eric Garner. Rather, your contention that you don't have a vote in the situation.
You don't.
And it just made me wonder, has anyone ever negotiated themselves out of having cuffs put on them?
Yes.
And the answer seems to be yes.
Once you say, to Joe's point, you're under arrest, there's no negotiation. Put your hands up. I'm going to cuff you, and we can talk on the way into the precinct.
I saw you making a face, Dan.
Oh, I don't know. I just don't agree. You don't have a vote. I get it, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, and I know that could be taken a number of different ways, but I think that's the problem. I think these are very layered arguments, and I think if we fail to understand the community's perspective on this, with Garner specifically, you know, having worked in the 7-5, which is a majority black or Hispanic precinct, if we're going to sit
help us out, 7-5 is
7-5 precinct, East New York, Brooklyn. It's a very busy precinct, the 7-5 precinct, to say the least. You can't just dismiss out of hand that some of these people here haven't had interactions with police that have skewed their view of the world. I'm not saying you're doing that at all. What I'm just saying here is with Garner, you know, we can't just dismiss, you know, the community's portion of it either. Having grown up in the street, and listen, a lot of my experiences with cops when I was on the other side, not the police side, on the civilian side, some of them weren't great. We can't just dismiss that out of hand. And to say, you know, you don't have a vote, I understand. And
they don't have a vote.
No.
Once a police officer says,
now,
hang on, Dan. What precedes an arrest is what you in the media may conclude to a bit of a negotiation. But once a police officer has made a determination that there is going to be an arrest effected, there is no vote in that. Right. All right. What precedes that, all right, is what's called the inquiry. All right. The officer arrives at the scene, makes an observation, and there is an inquiry conducted. It's part of the investigation. Once that inquiry has established that a law has been broken, and a uniformed police officer says that you're under arrest, there is no negotiation.
No, I get all
you're
that.
Under
You're
arrest.
talking mechanics, and if we're going to talk mechanics in real life situations where mechanics aren't everything involved, you already lost. I get it. When you tell someone they're under arrest, they don't get to say, no, I'm not. You're right. That's the mechanical legal portion. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are people in the street who have had really bad interactions with cops over the years. I don't blame the cops by default. I don't think Officer Pantaleo's intent that day with Eric Garner was to even hurt him at all.
No, I agree.
But we can't go into this and just say, like, oh, listen, you know, the public has no vote in it. When the cops show up, it's all over. You know, where we are still a constitutional republic, and there's a large growing swath of people on both sides of the political spectrum who are worried about militarization of policing.
And I don't want you to misunderstand this, all right? This isn't to say that when a police officer arrives at a scene that he doesn't have discretion in what's going on. My point, and I don't want to lose this point, is that once he or she, all right, has made a determination, all right, and that's the problem with Gardner, all right? Those cops were not there for 8 seconds. They were there for quite some time. And Gardner knew the cops, all right, after 30 interactions. So he knew the deal. He knew what was going on. I agree with you. There, especially in our poorer neighborhoods here in the city, there's a great deal of discretion that goes on with the police officers and their interaction with the public and whether or not they're going to lock everybody up for every stupid thing that comes down the pike. I mean, if that were the case, we wouldn't have a cop on patrol.
Right.
All right, that wouldn't happen. But, and here's the but, and this is a hard but, all right, when a uniformed police officer says, you are under arrest, make it very, very clear. There is no vote in that.
Perfect for training, perfect for your hearing, perfectly legal. Silencer Shop is the perfect choice for buying a silencer for any firearm. Get the best models and brands, the largest inventory, and the best prices in the country. We'll help you make the best choice for your shooting needs. And with Silencer Shop Direct, we can guide you through the fast and easy buying and delivery process. Improve your accuracy, protect your hearing. Buy a silencer today at silencershop.com.
I got the most amazing Valentine's gift. I thought it was incredibly thoughtful and really unique.
This Valentine's Day, surprise them with something different. Give Sherry's Berries, the freshest, juiciest strawberries, dipped in the finest ingredients. Choose from over 50 gourmet toppings, all delivered fresh to any home or office on Valentine's Day.
They were delivered to my office, and everyone was so jealous.
With this special offer, get a signature box of Sherry's Berries for just $19.99 and order now to double the berries for just $9.99 more.
It's a great deal, and she loved them.
Go to berries.com, click on the mic in the upper right corner, and enter code ACCESS. Get these amazing strawberries for just $19.99 or double the berries for only $9.99 more.
You can't go wrong sending a box of Sherry's Berries.
Remember, berries.com. Click the mic and enter code ACCESS or call 888-SWEET-90.
Dana Lash calls Metabolic Meals the company that I trust to handle my nutrition. Metabolic Meals is a healthy meal delivery program that features fresh, high-protein, gluten-free meals. Prepared by a team of chefs trained at the esteemed Culinary Institute of America, our delicious meals take the hassle out of meal planning and make it so much easier to accomplish your health and fitness goals. Meal plans to match your lifestyle and budget. Metabolic Meals, from our kitchen to your home.
Mesothelioma victims and their loved ones may be entitled to a cash award from the $18 billion in asbestos trust funds, and you may not have to file a lawsuit to qualify. If diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer caused by exposure to asbestos, call the number on your screen now. Even if a loved one had mesothelioma or asbestos lung cancer and has passed, your family may still be entitled to a cash award. Mesothelioma is a rare cancer caused by exposure to asbestos. Many victims worked in the Navy or in shipyards, mills, carpentry, roofing, insulation, construction, or automotive industries. For over 30 years, our legal team has successfully helped thousands of victims and families. Time is limited. You may not have to file a lawsuit if you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer caused by exposure to asbestos.
Call 1-855-289-9196. That's 1-855-289-9196.
Let's talk about race. Tell me the factor that race plays in your everyday life as a cop.
Well, it didn't in my precinct, because the precinct was 90 to 95% black and Hispanic. So it just by sheer numbers, everyone you encountered was largely black or Hispanic. But I think on the other side, you know, I think what we're failing to understand, a lot of us in that line of work, is that the black experience in America with police has been far different. That's not I'm not making excuses for him. I'm not black. I can't tell you what it's like to live in skin that isn't white. But Jim Crow is something no one on this set has ever experienced. You've never had a drink from a colored water fountain. You're going further back even to the point that I want to start from, Dan, which is not illegitimate. Perhaps we have to go back there. But, I wonder, the easy question is this. Is there ever bias in your mindset when you approach a situation? And the answer clearly I'm going to get is no. But let me ask you this. African Americans account for, I believe, 57% of the murders in the city. Latinos, 30%. You're looking at close to 80 to 90% of violent crime committed by black or Latino perpetrators. These statistics aren't foreign to you as a police officer.
Are they in your mind? Do they set your mind? Do you have a mindset going into a situation where you are more guarded?
No. The answer to your question is no. When you are a cop in a precinct, and we're talking about uniform patrol now, you know the makeup of the demographics of your precinct. You know who stands out, and you know the behavior that stands out. And I can honestly say that in all the precincts and all the places that I ever worked, and I worked the whole city, I knew when someone stood out the same way that I could be in Maryland tomorrow, I could be in LA, I could be in Florida the following day. And I'll tell you that
You
that
mean
guy...
based on characteristics outside of race, you're saying?
Absolutely.
The way you're walking,
well, if I'm
the way
in
you
a
carry
totally
yourself?
white area,
Yeah.
and there's two black guys in a car outside of a store, and the store looks like it's closing, they're going to raise me up. The same way that if I'm in a black neighborhood, and I see what we call a salt and pepper team, a white and a black person in a car, it raises me up. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. I could be in Paris, France last week, or I could be in, Tampa, Florida tomorrow. I can spot that today based on my police training. So it's not based on race, it's based on the whole totality of the situation at that moment. And that's what cops, good cops, are trained to do, hone their skills over their 20 years in different places, Secret Service. Dan can tell you that some guy's standing out when he's doing a protective detail. Why? Because that's the way he was trained. It's not based on race. It's based on the whole circumstance.
Joe, these stats don't enter your mind and affect how you approach a situation?
I got to be honest with you, Will. When I was a cop, and I spent nearly all my time on the job on patrol. Very few moments away from patrol. And when you are a uniformed police officer on patrol, whether you're a sergeant, lieutenant, captain, or above, all right, you are responding to the beat of the radio, all right, and that radio beats because people call, and they call, and they call, and they call, and they continue to call. Our police officers handle tens of thousands of radio runs, millions per year. You don't have time to think white, black, or anything in between that. I know it's a popular narrative that's out there, but you don't have that. The human circumstance doesn't allow it. Well, you're going, when you dial 911, they don't say, are you black or white?
No, but so this is interesting, and I want to follow this just a little bit, because the argument is this, Joe. All right, you get that beat. You respond to a call, okay? And we don't have to be theoretical about this. This is the Tamir Rice situation in Cleveland. A cop responds to that call. He approaches a situation. The perpetrator, in that case with Tamir Rice, was a young black kid. I think he had a toy gun, which I understand completely changes the situation.
Sure.
But the question is, your instincts, my instincts, anybody's instincts who's aware of perhaps broader statistics, or perhaps has some racial animus, whatever it may be, are with you as you approach the situation. You may not have time to do what you just said. Ask yourself all of these surface level questions. But the question is, do you react? Are these biases correctly because of statistics or incorrectly for other reasons in there?
I think you got to dig deeper than that. All right, because most firearms related or even knife related incidents happen in seconds. They don't happen over minutes. They don't happen over hours. All right, these happen quick, very, very quick, split action. I can find no better place where this happened than I think, Dan, it was the 7-1 where we had inside a mosque a man with a knife, and police officers repeatedly telling him, drop the knife, drop the knife. You saw a whole YouTube video of this, all right? And all of this doesn't happen over minutes. It happens over seconds.
Right.
You don't get time to think about all this. And a police officer is saying, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. All right? You're not dropping the gun. So what am I going to do? Walk up to you and say, please drop the gun? And what if it is a real gun? And then what do you do? So, there's a practical side of this. Like I said before, humanity throws its problems at police officers. They don't always like the outcome, and it's not always pretty.
Right. I think you're asking a very fair question. The question is implicit bias versus explicit behavior. How I would respond to that is, I don't know. Do you go into a situation, given that the circumstances you've had based on strict probability, if you were in a crime situation as a victim or as a police officer, based on strict probability, it is likely with someone of a race other than yourself if you're white. Based on strict probability numbers, does that influence a cop's outward behavior as he acts? The bottom line is, we'll never know. Implicit bias is a theoretical concept. And I made this argument in a different interview where I said, all you can judge me on as a cop is my explicit behavior and what I did. That's it. But it's a fair question.
And I think that's a fair point, that you'll never know.
You don't.
Let's move for a moment. Let's talk about Mayor Bill de Blasio. I want to talk about specifically one of the statements he gave that caused such controversy, that he told his son, his biracial son, Dante, he gave him the lesson, I guess, which is you need to be careful when you interact with police, that don't go for your cell phone, don't make any sudden movements. And I think, Dan, was referencing this exact point. What do you think about that statement he made?
It's not the statement. It's that he made the statement and alluded to the fact that Dante happened to be half black was the cause. Which cops, I mean, put yourself in the cop's perspective. Let's say in your business, you're in media. If someone came out, someone of influence who was in charge of your company came out and said, you know what, I had a bad interview one time with this white guy, and I think every white guy in media hates people who are black or Hispanic. And this man had influence over your life. You would be understandably outraged, wouldn't you? He didn't say it was just Will. He said it was media people in general. That's what de Blasio did wrong. Instead, I've given my wife the lecture. I was a cop. You know why? There's a gun in every single interaction with a cop. The cops. I say to my wife, you get pulled over, lights on, hands on the steering wheel.
Your point is he implied that implicit bias on the entire department.
On race, that's the difference. He didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, anytime you're dealing with a police officer, there's an inherent danger, there's a gun in the situation. We would prefer if you would just respond. You can take care of all your problems, as Joe said, at the precinct. And the arrest, litigating the arrest doesn't happen in the street. I gave my wife's Hispanic. I didn't give her the lecture about what to do in a car stop because she's Hispanic. I gave her the lecture because I don't want any misunderstanding. She's fumbling for something, cop thinks she has a gun. And the fact that he alluded to that it was race-based, what, do you blame the cops? You have a department of 38,000 people who are all being called racists at one time? That was embarrassing.
Gateway Hills is good for business. Just 30 miles from Boston, Gateway Hills in Nashua, New Hampshire is a modern 400-acre live, work, play, and shop community. But what makes Gateway Hills good for business? No income tax, no sales tax, no capital gains tax, no inventory tax, and no machinery tax. New Hampshire is a state that values liberty, business, and entrepreneurship, and Gateway Hills offers a lifestyle that you and your employees will love. Gateway Hills, it's good for business.
Your ancestors preserved food and prepared for rainy days. Shouldn't you? An economic collapse or natural disaster could be right around the corner. Prepare now with an amazing home freeze dryer from Harvest Right, the world's first freeze dryer for families. At harvestright.com, you can find out how to build a supply of food that will last a lifetime. Go to harvestright.com to see how this amazing home appliance works. Freeze dry the food you and your family love, only at harvestright.com.
Hi, I'm Brian Brody from Solutions from Science, and I want to tell you about an amazing breakthrough in compact portable power. Introducing the all-new Pocket Power Plus, the most amazing personal backup battery system ever developed. The Pocket Power Plus charges all your electronic devices. Run an iPad for 18 hours, a Kindle for 32 hours, an iPhone for 64 hours, an iPod for 150 hours, and even double your laptop's battery runtime. The Pocket Power Plus is the perfect power system for you. Small enough to fit in your pocket, it comes with jumper cables and a full accessory pack. Powerful enough to jumpstart motorcycles, cars, trucks, and yes, even buses. Great for campers, hikers, and bikers, business travelers, on the ground or in the air. The Pocket Power Plus is your own personal charging power station. Learn more about the Pocket Power Plus by going to pocketpowerplus.com. This week only, get a Pocket Power Plus at half price by visiting pocketpowerplus.com. That's pocketpowerplus.com.
Every day, Bill had a choice. He could walk to work the same way he always did, or he could learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. He could mindlessly check emails, or check out a new lesson. Je t'aime. He could watch the grass grow, or watch his language skills grow.
Comme ça? Très bien.
Right now, you have the same choice. You could let time pass you by, or you could do something life-changing. Experience the new Rosetta Stone. Call now for a free demo at 1-888-232-4052. With award-winning speech recognition technology, Rosetta Stone is the fastest way to learn a language, guaranteed. Now it's your turn to do something exciting. You could keep watching TV, or you could seize the day. Call now for a free demo at 1-888-232-4052.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Do we believe that, or do we not?
You can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy. We're going to have to make some choices.
I want to talk about the response of the police quickly. Were these the right thing to do? First of all, we all are aware that turning your back on the mayor. Several police officers at funerals, at the hospital, at press conferences have turned their backs on Mayor de Blasio. Was that an appropriate response?
I think the frustration level that is out there within the department in all ranks, and even though they cannot publicly speak for themselves, I think it was more than appropriate. More
than appropriate.
More than appropriate, because it was the only chance. You know, this is something that people don't understand. There's a level of frustration out there that is incredibly deep, and these cops have no way of venting, absolutely none at all. It was their one opportunity to vent, and they let it out. All right, and if that's what it takes to take the pressure pin out of all of this a little bit, well then, you know what, I'm fine with it. Do I like that it happened? No, I don't like it. Do I understand it? I certainly do understand it. I've been in those shoes. I've walked that beat. I understand it. And they're very frustrated because they want their mayor to believe in them.
Appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely
Really?
appropriate. Absolutely appropriate. And a very good sign, which the media picked up right away.
Appropriate?
There's an asymmetry there. That was the only way those guys could fight back. And my only regret about the whole thing is it took the attention off the mayor's silly comments and made it about the protests instead.
What about the statements of the union president, Pat Lynch, Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, saying that Mayor de Blasio, and he said literally, has blood on his hands?
I think it was a mistake because I think it took, again, the heat off the mayor, who had unquestionably screwed up, and put it on Patty Lynch instead, which I think it was a mistake.
I think it was a little heavy-handed, and I think if Pat Lynch probably had to do it over again, he would have chosen different words. But he just had two of his officers assassinated.
Yeah, I'm going to differ with the guys, and I understand it all, but there was a lead-up to this that we were all watching. It started in Ferguson. It was the dialogue of the president. It was the dialogue of the U.S. Attorney General Holder, all right, and then Mayor de Blasio just went over the hill with it, and then he let the anarchists from East 14th Street take over the bridge, take over the highways, take over the tunnels, and this was a whole buildup. We all saw it coming. We knew something was going to happen, and that's one of the reasons why I began these rallies across the city, to rally and a voice. The silence from our elected officials has been deafening in support of our police officers, until, of course, we have two cops that get assassinated in a marked radio car on the streets of Brooklyn. Then everybody wants to get their picture at a vigil, all right? I say, stay home. We don't need you at the vigils. We don't need vigils.
So you think the statement was not over the top?
I think the statement was right on the money, because there's two sides to City Hall. One of them is the mayor, and the other one is an entire city council. And you're telling me not one of the 51 city council members could stand up and say, hold on, Mayor, the rhetoric's gone far enough. We need to calibrate this a little bit and bring it down.
All right, so finally, the slowdown, the work slowdown. Summonses, traffic, parking, drinking, down 90% through the last week in December into the first week of January from the year prior. Cops stopped going after small stuff, seemingly in response to this. I think I'm going to lead up to Joe again. Appropriate or not appropriate, Dan?
again, it's a tough question because it's not a black or white issue.
Come on, is that really, stop doing your job?
No. One, that they weren't. They were given discretion on issues. I mean, there were 2 cops who off-duty ran out of a locker room and were shot. They weren't even working to stop a robbery. So, of course, they were doing their job. But you can't separate this from the fact that the reason the Garner incident happened was because of a broken windows, small crimes-based theory of policing, that the minute the cops took it upon themselves to use their discretion in that very same model that the mayor loved, the mayor hated it because their revenue wore out. It's not a yes or no. It's just not that easy of an answer. I'm sorry. It's a layered response, and you have to look at it that way.
I too think it's a layered response. However,
I don't know the layered response. I kind of know what that means.
Because you're going into many different areas here, right? If you're just talking about quality of life summonses, sure, the cops aren't going to enforce the quality of life issues because they're the thorny issues that the mayor said, quite frankly, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this in Staten Island. You know, maybe Lucy's aren't a big deal anymore, right? Maybe we shouldn't enforce New York state law. How do you feel about that, Will? All right, and if we don't enforce the law so far as Lucy's are concerned, well, maybe, you know, failing to make a right-hand signal change, maybe that's not something that's really important either, right? You know, and maybe, you know, some other law isn't something that we should really be enforcing. All right, where does this stop? Where does this slippery slope stop? So when you're out there and you're asking police officers to really, you know, defend the hard line, all right, enforce the law, all right, you know, as Lady Justice does with blinders on, all right, then, you know, they want to know that City Hall has their backs. And it is clear City Hall does not have their backs.
I started asking you guys in the beginning about your lives as cops. What movie, this is our window into your world, or at least it was for me before today, what movie best reflects what it's like to be an NYPD cop?
Wow, what movie?
I would say probably French Connection, Freebie and the Bean, and then the television shows really more depicted. When you watch a show like Blue Bloods, and you watch NYPD Blue and Hill Street Blues, and you mix all those together, and you even take Barney Miller as a squad type of show, I think it's a mixture of all. And I think that you have to go into it. Certain days, you will walk out of your command laughing your tail off about something that happened or some incident. And the next day, you're almost at tears because you couldn't do something that you really feel you should have been able to do only because you wear the shield, which is ridiculous. I think it's a mixture of all.
For the first time today, did I leave you speechless and you unnuanced?
Yeah, I always, I don't know, the movie I always think of is Seven.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
the Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman movie?
Yeah, listen, it's a noir movie. Yeah, I'll tell you why. No, for a reason that I may be throwing you a curveball, but you know, it's kind of a noir film. It's not meant to represent reality. But when he goes home to his house and he's living in this kind of dingy apartment, and you know, train station wakes him up at night, and the dog is sitting on paper in a room, I think people don't understand that being a cop is a very kind of middle class, if not lower middle income job. A lot of these guys live in the cities they police, and it's just from that, the home life perspective. You know, his wife loves him, but they're having some issues here and there. And I thought he actually did a good job as a cop, you know, a cop's home life.
Did I leave you speechless, Joe?
Well, you did, because I kind of object to that, right? I object to this whole Hollywood of what a police officer does, because I've spent my life with them, and I know what a precarious job it is. I know how difficult it is, and I'm really sensitive to that. I'm sensitive to what these guys go through. You know, I'm sensitive to the James Hoey's out there, a retired cop who calls 911, and then I get him in my van looking for a perp, and he goes into cardiac arrest, and I've got to try and revive him, and it doesn't work. I'm sensitive to all of that. I'm sensitive to that poor lady whose image will stay in my mind for the rest of my life. All right, and those are not things that are depicted on movie shows and things like that. Those are things that will stay with me until I'm dead. And those are things that every single police officer in the city of New York goes through every day. You know, we are a small window into that world of the police department. There are 38,000 men and women out there, and I'd say 99 9/10 of them are going through this every single day. You know, going through the problems that humanity will throw at them, and we're supposed to be perfect at it because we got 6 months of training in the New York City Police Department Police Academy. Well, golly, why doesn't it work right?
All right, guys, thank you. Joe, thanks for your passion. Tom, thanks for your calm. You got it. Dan, thanks. Not easy.